thinking about what to discuss today, I thought it most beneficial if I simply talked about some eye-opening moments for me, some of the conclusions that I've come to by trial and error and with the help of others and by observing others, what to do, what not to do, to produce better photographs, to put more thought into the work, to think deeply about what I'm doing, and in the end, create better photographs, with the hope that those among us who want to create better photographs can take some of what I've learned over a period of 30 plus years and go home and apply that and create better photos, more satisfying photos of your cars, your children, your puppies, whatever it is that interests you. So the first thing that I want to say is something that I learned in the very beginning. It was my eye-opening moment, and it profoundly changed the way that I approach the work. What do you see?
You approached it correctly.
What's the first thing you see in that photo?
We see where the focus is. He has a pocket tab up.
So this was shot at Lime Rock a few years ago. I was up there to try to capture the crowd in the foreground and the Corvette going by, and I saw this young lady, and I thought, well, what an interesting array of back muscles. And I thought, I'll be clever and focus on her and use a slow shutter speed to get the Corvette blurring by, to create a sense of motion, blah, 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 blah. It's a cute photo. It's a clever photo. It illustrates the main point that I hope you go home with today. We are inherently biased. We see the world through our own prism, through our own filter, as human beings. There's no getting around it. It's subconscious. We see things, we taste things, we hear things, we smell things, we experience everything in our universe through our own prejudices, through our own preferences. We gravitate toward what we like, we move away from what we don't like, instinctively. When we look at a photo, we see what we want to see, we see what we like. We see a young lady with nice curves and not that much clothing, and we like that. We see a race car. We like that. What does the camera see? The camera has no biases. It has no prejudices. It doesn't care. It sees whatever it's pointed at. It sees everything equally. You look at this photo. Pretty girl, cool race car blurring by, clever, there's balance, she's on the left, the car's on the right. What does the camera see? Well, the camera sees everything that's there. It's a timing and scoring box with a yellow wire coming out of it. Yep. If I was setting this up, if this was a controlled photo shoot, I wouldn't have that distraction there. See in the lower right-hand corner, hard to see, there's a little bit of garbage. Somebody threw some garbage on the ground. That's no good. The camera doesn't care, though. We didn't see it. We didn't see the box. Worst of all, across the track, a BMW flag flying above a Corvette racing flag. Ugh. The camera didn't care. It captured it. I didn't see it. The point is, the camera sees everything. To be a better photographer, the single most important thing you can do is try to see the world the way your camera sees it. Try to step away from your biases, your preferences, your likes, your dislikes. Be the camera. See what the camera sees. When you see what the camera sees, you can make better photos all day long. Now, I want to talk about the two perhaps most important components of any photograph, and that's the composition and the light. We see the light in a certain way, we see the composition in a certain way. Composition is in simplest terms, can be defined as the arrangement of every element in the photo. Where is everything? Where is everything in relation to everything else? What are the colors? What are the tones? Where's the light? Where's the shadow? The composition includes everything. How we control the composition determines how great that photo is or how lousy that photo is. How we control the light determines how great or how lousy that is. By controlling the composition, we control the photo. We control the reaction from the viewer, the emotions it generates, the message it sends. What is the purpose of the photo? You make photos because you want them to be beautiful. If you're in the photography business, you may be making photos because you want to sell something. If you're in the publishing business, you want to communicate, you want to entertain, you want to educate. There's a purpose. How you arrange the elements in your photos determines whether you've met that purpose, whether you've exceeded at it, whether you've failed at it. In almost all cases, almost everything in your scene is under your control. The composition is yours. You don't think so at first, but I'm telling you, it is yours. You can move everything around. You look at this photo. It's a beautiful 1966 Corvette coupe, photographed at sunrise. There's not a lot. It's a simple image. You have a car. You have the Atlantic Ocean. That's Fire Island in the background with the Fire Island lighthouse and the rising sun. Everything in this photo can be moved. This was one photo I did here. It's got some balance. The strength of the sun grabs your eye. It takes it away from the car. It's more of a scene setter. It's not a photo of the car, right? I can move everything in this image, right? You think I'm crazy? Can I move the sun? Can I move the lighthouse? Can I move Fire Island? Well, I can't move the sun, but I can move the sun in my frame by moving the car, by moving me, by moving my camera. I've changed the position of the sun relative to the position of the car. I've done it again. The sun is still in the same place, but it's in a different place in my photo. So trees, mountains, buildings, signs, utility poles, things that ruin photos, things that can enhance your photos, they're all within your control. Move your camera, move your car, move your child, move your dog, move your girlfriend, move your boyfriend. Everything's within your control, and that's something to think about. Think composition. Look at the scene. See it the way the camera sees it. A huge mistake people make very frequently, it's a pretty park. It's a pretty scene. They're at the beach. They're on the waterfront. They're on the lakefront. Take a picture of my car. All you see is the car, because that's what we want to see. We don't see the handicapped parking sign behind the car. We don't see the garbage can off to the side. We don't see the litter on the road. It's your composition. Move over 3 feet. Move the car over 2 feet. The sign goes away. The garbage can goes away. This is a photo I did last year in Verona, Italy. I saw the car on Facebook. I was being gassed at a gas station, and I said, that looks like Italy. This sounds cool. I'm going to Italy for the race at Imola. See if I can find this car. I found it, shot it on the man's property. Not my favorite choice, usually for settings. That was shot through a tree. The tree is where it is. I couldn't move it. But I could move myself. Same tree, different photo. Same tree, different photo. Again, did I move the tree? Yeah, I moved it. I moved it in my composition. Composition. It's all about the composition. This is in South Carolina, a Cadillac shoot from quite a few years ago. This was the approach to a plantation, a grand agricultural estate that's gone, but the trees remain. I use the trees to frame the car, common theme. Use the elements in your photo, not just get the undesirable ones out of the way, include the ones that are pretty, that are nice. Use them, harness their power. The trees are beautiful, but the car is still the star of this photo. Same trees, different angle. I didn't move the trees, I moved me. I know some of you like the races. I see some of you at the races. Some of you, I'm sure, are photographing at the races. It's the same thing. Very little is within our control at the racetrack, especially if you're a spectator. You don't have access to trackside, but you still have a lot of control. There's still a lot of elements there that you can use. Crowd photos, get people behind the vehicle. Simple photo, 3/4 rear. It was the lines on the road that caught my attention. They evoke motion. They show something that brings the car to life. I couldn't reconfigure the track. I couldn't move the track. I couldn't tell the car where to be on the track. I had control over one thing, where I was relative to the car, to take advantage of the composition. Another one, using elements in the photo to frame the car. Anything you can do to frame the car makes for a better photo. Completely different environment, same thing, framing the car. Framing the car. This is Lime Rock. This is a 54 Corvette owned by a very high-level GM executive. Black was available in 54, a very rare color. Very simple. This was at his house. I went up on the second story and shot out a window because I saw flower boxes up there, and I thought, that's cool. If I can sort of surround the car a little bit with those vibrant colors, the colors against the black, strong contrast, it frames the car, it emphasizes the car, and it shows a view of the car that people don't usually get. That's another thing, your angle of view. The normal angle of view, 5 feet to 7 feet, that's how we see everything, because that's how we exist in this world. Get down low, go up high, provide a different angle of view. Again, composition makes the subject matter more interesting. It's surprising in a way. You're showing the viewer something that they don't normally see. This is at Spa in Belgium. One of the challenges for me after shooting racing for so many years is keeping my own interest up, finding something new. So Spa is not one, but there are tracks that I've been to 40, 50, 60 times now. I've been to Spa 4 or 5 times. We're only allowed to go in finite areas, defined areas at every track. So it's easy to get into a rut and keep doing the same thing, year after year, race after race. One of the ways I challenge myself is to try to find something new. At every track, I don't care if I've been there 100 times, there is a new photo there that I just never saw before. And my challenge is to find it. And a few times a year, I find something new, and it's super satisfying. This was something new, and a way to frame the car and show the scene, composition, to harness what's in that scene, to create a photo that was meaningful. Another example, just an unusual shaped tree, frame the car. Man-made objects. I like shooting cars at airports because they have a lot of open space and clean, hard surfaces, pavement or concrete to put the cars on. Something different, something interesting. This was actually somebody's home. Oftentimes, homes don't make good settings for car photography because there's too many reflections and trees and distractions, mailboxes and garbage cans. So this car was owned by a 17-year-old internet entrepreneur, and he was in Florida. I asked him to think about settings, environments, and I said, I like open space, interesting architecture, blah, blah, blah. He said, well, I think I can use my friend's father's house. And I said, well, houses don't usually work, blah, blah, blah. It looked like the Supreme Court building. Use the bridge, frame the car. Again, I usually get angry at things like this in my environment because of the reflections they put into the car, the way it looks like the bridge is growing out of the car, but that arch is just overwhelmingly beautiful to frame the car. Rusty railing in a ruined industrial setting, framing the car. Using the elements of this Cadillac race car to frame the driver. Focus the viewer's attention on the driver's face. Use the steering wheel to frame the shifter. I use the sky to help frame the car. A bunch of road signs at the Baltimore street race. You just have to look at your environment. There is a wealth of material there. Wherever you are, you just have to be the camera. See the environment the way the camera sees it. This is at the Long Beach Grand Prix, shot out of a multi-level parking structure. This was last year at Le Mans. They parade select cars through the city itself for the public. Obviously, this is not a photo so much of that Cadillac prototype. It's a photo of the medieval portion, the defensive walls from the medieval city of Le Mans. It's a scene setter. It's gorgeous. It's interesting. There's perspective, the converging lines, the colors. It all works. It would be so easy to stand on that bridge crossing this road and just photograph the car. What would a close-up photo of that Cadillac look like? Look like any other close-up photo. It could be done anywhere in the world. It would mean nothing. Composition. Use what's in front of you. This is on display in the exhibit, actually. Again, using everything in front of me, an opening in the guardrail where somebody crashed and distorted it, the colors, the composition. Sometimes you can use your environment to just tell the story. There's a message in there. There's nothing particularly beautiful about this photo, except that sign says it all. Without that sign, where is this photo? It could be anywhere, any racetrack in the world. Again, at the races, using the signage. That's a 76 Corvette that a British couple imported to Britain and then brought to France when they moved to France. Just did a feature story for a magazine. The license plate would surely be unusual if the car was in America, but the sign, the road sign, tells the whole story. Obviously manipulating my environment to send a message, to create a story. These are complicated. More examples of using the environment. This is a C8 race car, obviously, on a rolling road wind tunnel. Interesting under any circumstances. I have lots of photos on the inside of the car in the wind tunnel. Interesting. But to me, this is more interesting. It shows the control room. It shows people working. It tells the story why we're there. Again, more just using elements in the environment. Don't discount dumb luck. I knew they were going to wave the American flags. I couldn't control much of anything except my camera settings and myself and my position. And luckily, the cameras I use now shoot 30 frames per second. Just hold the button down and hope for the best. I have loads of frames where the flags are over the car. I had one frame where the flags framed the car. Again, just using elements in the environment, arranging things to create something aesthetically beautiful, to bring the viewer's attention where I want it. Telling the story, where we are. We're running short on time, so I'm just going to jump to something else to talk a little bit about light. Light is the essence of photography. Whether it's film or a digital sensor, your camera is capturing the light. Without light, there is no photography. If you can control the light, you can make better photos. Perfectly lovely photo, 67 Corvette. This was supposed to be at sunrise. There was no sunrise because the clouds were covering the sun. Different car, same location, a sunrise. Much more pleasing photo, much more interesting because the light was good. I couldn't control the sun other than be there on a day when the sunrise was good. That's the control you exercise. You have to use what control you have. Late model Camaro, certainly a nice photo, shot in Mobile, Alabama at a steel mill. Terrible photo. The light does nothing to show the shape of that car, the complex surfaces of that car. Same car, same exact car, better control of the light. I just failed. It was quick. I had to get in, get out before they told me to get out. Nice photo. You don't see the complex shape of the car. You don't appreciate the surfaces of the car. Here you see every crease line, look at the bulge in the hood, look at the muscularity. Dodge Viper. Pretty photo, beautiful, it's a sunset. This was shot in California. Terrible photo.
Extra lighting? You do extra lighting?
Yes, always, any of these sunrise, sunset photos, I'm lighting the car. The light on the car in this photo is flat. It looks like a blob of yellow. Same car, better lighting. You see the beauty of the Dodge Viper. You can control your light. In almost all cases, this is what I'm using. Simple flashes with a transmitter on my camera. I've got 12 of these. I group them in 3 or 4 different groups. The output and the positioning is key. You experiment. Let's see. Well, you saw it. It went, battery, there we go. Not expensive, easy, experiment, and you figure it out. Control your light. Say something about that, about controlling your light. This is a Cadillac photograph that's Circuit of the Americas. Sunset, lit with flashes. 10 or 12 of the flashes that I just showed you. Everything's in a hurry. That sun is going down. When it goes down, I have no control over it. It's rush, 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 rush. The lights have to be positioned exactly right to get the car lit the way you want it lit. Anybody ever hear of a VALS? It's a voice-activated light stand. My friend Keith Rizzo, he was my voice-activated light stand. Keith, take a step to your left, take a step to your right. Another good reason to have children. My son has been a voice-activated light stand on many occasions. People ask me about equipment. We're running out of time. I'll say a few very quick words. There is no substitute for a camera with a detachable lens. Lens choice makes a huge difference. The simple settings, shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. To have a camera that has manual settings and a lens that you can change and a circular polarizer filter to help eliminate reflections, huge. Now, having said that, this photo was shot with my iPhone because I was looking out the window and there it was in my driveway. Another one, shot with an iPhone. I don't make a habit of it. I don't recommend that you do either. But if you see something that moves you, and that's the camera in your hand, use it. I will say one more thing before concluding. And that is composition, light, be the camera, see the scene the way the camera sees it, but don't fall into a routine. To be a great photographer, you need to be a problem solver. There will be problems. You're going to be kicked out of where you were at. It's going to rain. The sun is going to be non-cooperative. The car is going to have a problem. Be a problem solver. If it rains, make beautiful rain photos. If you need height, find your elevation. I used to do a lot of work for Lotus. This is a Lotus Evora. I had an extensive photo shoot in Southern California, San Diego area, in the city with the battleship in the background. I'm sorry, the aircraft carrier. Beautiful scenic beach photos. I think this was a place called Silver Strand Beach. Went there, no permits, had to go in quick, shoot the car, and run away before they yelled at me. Placed the car. There were benches, there were garbage cans, there were handicap parking signs. There was one spot to place the car. I placed the car there, used the restroom, came out, and there it is. A Deere 744K front loader, a 55,000-pound articulated front loader. Where? Really? You have to be a problem solver. What do? You move the damn thing. Bruce took that photo, by the way. Believe it or not, the gentleman standing there was the operator. I asked him politely to move it. He jokingly said, "No, I'm not moving it." And then he said, "Do you want to move it?" And I thought he was kidding. He wasn't kidding, so I moved it. We're at the end. I'm out of time. I'm happy to answer any questions. If I may we entertain questions? I'm asking, can I? Okay, yes.
Since a lot of your photographs are framed by things, when you work on a flat surface, it's a very open area that does not have the elements of some of these framed vehicles when you are picturing them. How would you advise to make those pictures interesting to the eye?
Well, I have some examples to answer that. Oftentimes, I will choose a blank surface. There can be no elements, but that can work as well. Basically, you're making the car, or whatever your subject matter is, the star of the show. If you have no choice, sometimes there's no choice, and you want interesting elements, you have to bring them with you, or introduce them digitally. Some people don't like to use Photoshop. They think they're cheating, or other digital manipulation software. My answer to that is, if God didn't want us to do it, he wouldn't have given us Photoshop. So, at the end of the day, my goals are, because it's my job, again, to meet and exceed my clients' needs at all times. And I don't care what it takes to do that. If I have to remove a portable toilet that's in the background of an otherwise great photo, or I have to add something or change something, I do it. If I'm photographing for my own satisfaction, children, my dogs, my own cars, if I can do something to make that photo better, I do it. At the end of the day, it's part of the process, and it makes the photo better. But I will oftentimes seek out blank canvases so that there's nothing to distract from the car. The car is it. It just depends on what you want to do. Yes, sir?
Talking about how you
Yes, yeah. I use autofocus most of the time. I very rarely use manual focus. Sometimes I do. Focus and the depth of field are mastering the basic controls on your camera. For a photo like through the guardrail, that was manually focused because the camera looking through a little slit, it's just such a small part of the frame, the camera doesn't want to look through there all the time. So I will manually focus on a point on the track where I expect the car to be, and then hold that button down and hope to get it. Depth of field is a function of the aperture, the lens aperture. Again, not to get into optical physics, because I don't know enough of it and because nobody's probably interested in it. The lens has an aperture. It has a mechanism that opens and closes in there. The more it opens, the more light it lets in, the better the performance in dark conditions. But the more it opens, the shallower the depth of field. And it's a little counterintuitive. The aperture is a number on your camera. It's called an f-stop, f1.0, f2.8, f4.0, f5.6. The range depends on the lens. The lower the number, the bigger the aperture. That's where it's counterintuitive. So an f-stop of 2.8 is much wider, 4 times wider than an f-stop of 5.6. It depends on the photo. It depends on what I'm trying to do. If it's a controlled photo, as opposed to, say, like a race car photo. With the racing action, in almost all cases, my camera's on shutter priority. I'm setting the shutter speed. I'm relying on the camera to do the rest. Sometimes it doesn't work well, and I go to manual, or I do exposure compensation. But the shutter, because I'm photographing something that's moving very quickly, I want to control the shutter speed. To freeze what I want frozen, to keep some blur in what I want blurred. The camera will determine the aperture. But if a photo like this, I determine the aperture and the shutter speed. And if I want the whole car to be in focus, and I don't mind a lot of the background and the foreground being in focus, I'll use a large aperture. I'm sorry, a small aperture, a large number. F11, F16, F22. Very often, the desire is to get a lot of blur in the background, a lot of blur in the foreground, to draw the viewer's eye to what's sharp. We immediately look at what's sharp. So for that, a numerically small, large aperture, f2.8, f4.0. Well, the cameras that I use, I can move the autofocus point around. Now, in these are yeah, they're mirrorless cameras. So I can put the autofocus point. It's almost infinite. I can put it anywhere. So it'll typically be middle, down, a little to the right. The most pleasing photo, this photo as an example, what should be sharpest is what's closest to you. Intuitively, we expect what's closest to us to be the sharpest, because everything we see in this world behaves that way. What's closest is what's sharpest, but this was shot with a 30 millimeter lens at aperture of 7.1 to get the whole car in focus. If this was at 2.8 or 1.0, the back of the car would be soft. Anybody else? Well, thank you very much for being here. I hope you enjoyed the day. I hope you enjoyed the exhibit, and I certainly hope you enjoyed the presentation and can take some of what we discussed and go home and create beautiful photos.